Okay, this is a pop art tutorial for Photoshop. It's taking just a basic photo here and trying to convert it into something that looks like pop art. Um, this is for Tavis if you're interested. Anyway, so I'm going ahead and I've got a layer here. I want to make sure that I have two copies of the same layer. Um, and in between these two layers, I'm going to insert another layer. And I'm going to fill it with a color like bright blue. That tends to be a nice pop art color. And really what I'd like to do is go over this with using the pen tool, but that's a tutorial in itself. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to keep it simple and use the eraser tool. And because it's going to be pop art, it doesn't necessarily have to be perfect as far as following the edges. So like for example, if I start in here in his neck, whoops, I need to make sure that I'm out here in layer 1. I'm going to start in here in his neck with my eraser, and then I'm just going to hold shift and kind of go around the edges. Alright, so you can see that basically you can get a kind of a quick effect here, just going along and deleting the stuff that you need to delete. And I'll do a little bit here just so you get an idea of how I'm doing it. And then I will go up here and just kind of erase the rest. Make my brush a little bit bigger. So you can see that you're already getting a really different look for this picture. And go along here again, use your shift and click. And if you ever mess up, you just have to undo, and it'll undo the last thing you did. Alright, so I'm going to just drop my brush size down a little bit and then go around his arm. And I'm going to pause here for a second so I can finish this and come back. And voila, we have the whole thing pretty much done. So basically now what we have is this layer kind of on its own. Alright, and we have this blue layer in between. So what I want to do now is I want to do a desaturation. So I want to make sure I'm on my top layer, and I'm going to hold Control and Shift and then click or press U. And now that desaturates my layer. So you can already see it's a very different effect from that. Alright, so the next thing I want to do is I want to perform a threshold, and that is under Image, Adjustments, and Threshold. And again, I want to make sure I'm on this top layer. You can see that by just adjusting a little bit, you get a very different look. So you kind of pick the layer, the effect that you're looking for. I'm going to go with that. Alright. And now, because it's so pixely, if that's a word, I'm going to go to Filter, Blur, Gaussian Blur, and I'm going to add maybe 1 or 2 pixels. I think 2 might be too much. I think I'm going to go with 1, or even 1.5. Alright, and I just wanted to smooth it a little bit. Now what I want to do next is I'm going to right click on my layer here and do duplicate layer. And instead of just doing in my document, I'm going to go to new. Okay, and I'll just call it temp. So now I have that copy by itself. I want to convert this to a grayscale just to get rid of any color, and that also allows me to convert it now to a bitmap. And I say OK, flatten layers, and I want to make sure that I have halftone screen selected, and I'm going to leave it on 72. And this is the part you'll have to play around a little bit. I have it on round. There's different shapes, but I like round. And my frequency 30 works pretty good for me, but adjust the frequency up or down for larger dots. Okay, so in that case, you can see that it doesn't really look like you get that pixelated effect, but if you zoom in at 100%, you can see that it's there. Alright, so now that I've got my dot effect, I'm going to go to Image, Mode, and back to Grayscale. Size ratio 1 so that I can copy it back to the other picture. And then I'm going to go Image, Mode, and then back to RGB color. Okay, and the reason I did that is now I can copy it back over here. So now I've got my layer. I'm gonna right click on it and do, whoops, duplicate layer, and I'm gonna go back to my original and OK. So now you see it appeared over here. Okay, so now I've got all of my pieces here. If I hold down my Alt button, see if I move between here, nothing happens. But if I hold my Alt button and I move between there, I get the double bubble effect. And if I click on that, it connects those two layers. So you can't really see it here, but if you were going to print this a little bit larger, there's 100%. You can see that I've got this kind of pop art, old, 60s, 70s album cover look. So I hope that works for you, and experiment with it. There's lots of things we can do. Add some other background effects and stuff, but I'll do that in another tutorial.